In today's tutorial, we're practicing our hand lettering and watercolor skills with a New Year's resolutions wreath. Hi guys, I'm Shayda, and on this channel I teach art like hand lettering and watercolor, so if you're into that, consider subscribing. Alright, let's grab our watercolors and begin our wreath. So I'm starting today with a little pencil sketch of what's to come. I've written my resolutions across the top, and then I've sort of drawn the outline of my wreath. And I haven't been too careful about that, just a small pencil outline, leaving space on the sides for you to paint the leaves in on this wreath, of course, and just crossed at the bottom. I like to do a wreath that crosses at the bottom and then is open at the top. And then today I'm using my Koi watercolor set, and this set, my set has 48 different colors here. The discs are highly pigmented, they're really nice colors, and this set comes with a water brush. And you can see here that all I have to do is squeeze the handle. I've got water in there and a little bit of water comes out. So this brush is really nice, or this set is really nice for taking with you if you're on the go, if you're going somewhere over the holidays, or if in the summer you're going to the beach and you want to paint. It's really, really portable. I also have a review of the Koi watercolor set if you'd like more info about it. I'm hoping that some of you might have received it for Christmas since it was on the gift guide this year. So we're painting with that this week, and hopefully some of you will be able to paint along with me. Now I've just mixed up a little bit of a cool green, so putting lots of blues and browns and blacks into my green. And I'm sort of going to be thinking of this as an olive wreath, so the olive leaves are long, with a point at the end, and they're this very cool green, dark green on one side and very, very light, dusty gray green on the other. And I'm beginning my painting by just laying down a few small leaves or medium-sized leaves towards the bottom of the wreath here. I'm just going for an oval shape with a little bit of a point, not thinking about it too much. I'm trying to push the paint around a little bit so that I get some variation of color. And I'm also trying to use some slightly different colors of green, so some of the leaves are a little bit warmer, a little bit cooler green, and that just gives me again a nice variation and some difference and some visual interest. And I'm going up the length of the pencil line and adding more and more leaves. And to complete my wreath, I'm going to be employing a wet on dry watercolor technique, and that just means that I'm starting with the painting, what I would call the underpainting, so laying down all these nice colorful leaves, and then I'll wait for my first initial layer of paint to dry completely, and then I'll go back in with wet paint again, and I will add more detail. So with wet on dry, you have a lot of control. You wait for that first layer to dry, and then you go back in and paint a second layer, so maybe add some depth and line to those leaves. And it's never a bad idea to keep that first layer of paint a little bit lighter. You can always add more depth, more dark colors a little later in your second layer of paint. Now once you get up to the point where you've painted to your title, to the My Resolutions, then you're just going to add some tiny leaves at the top along that pencil line. And I sort of do them one at a time because the wreath is these two branches reaching together. So I sort of go back and forth until I have a wreath that almost touches. You can leave some space at the top there. Once your first layer is done, you can leave it to dry and clean the water brush by simply squeezing a little water out and rubbing it against a paper towel. That'll just get all the color off. And once the wreath is completely dry, you can start that second layer, the wet on dry layer. And the nice thing about watercolors is that they may have dried on your palette, but all you have to do is add a little bit of water there and they will come back to life. So you will have fresh watercolors again, even the ones you mixed up on the palette that might be bone dry. For this second layer, this wet on dry layer, you'll see me adding a nice dark green to many of these leaves. So just making them look like they're a little more three-dimensional, like they're sort of coming off the page, like they are in fact a real leaf. And that's the power of adding that second layer to the stems and leaves, is it just adds this depth, and you have a lot of control when you add that depth. Once you're done, you can wash that brush out again and then leave your painting to dry completely. And I just wanted to take a second to say thanks to everyone who's chosen to support me on Patreon. If you go over to my Patreon now, there's this resolutions wreath is there. It's available for you to download and print and fill in your own resolutions. Most of the artwork that you see on the channel will now be available over on Patreon for a $2 monthly donation, so check it out. In order to add the text component to our resolutions wreath, I'm going to start with my Pigma Micron pen from Sakura. This is the 03 nib, which is sort of a medium-sized nib, with the 08 and 05 being larger and the 02 and the 01 being smaller. And I'm just carefully going over my pencil outline. I've written my resolutions very lightly using a nice sharp mechanical pencil so I don't get a lot of smudging, and then I'm just going over it in pen, just taking my time to do that simple cursive. And you can see there I've got it started. It's written out in pen now. And so at this point, I want to turn this into a sort of faux calligraphy. And so I'm going to go back in with the 03 nib and I'm going to thicken each downstroke. And I'm just thinking about what looks good. So trying to get the shape of those downstrokes looking really natural, as if I had done this with a brush pen or something like that. So just anywhere that your pen pulls down towards your body, that's the stroke that you're going to thicken. And that's what's going to give you this look of calligraphy. The next step here is to color in all those thick downstrokes that you just made. And so now I'm going to grab a smaller nib. I have the 005, which is a very, very small nib. And for a long time it was the smallest nib from Sakura. And I'm just carefully thickening or coloring in those downstrokes. And that's what it looks like when it's all done. So I can put the 005 to rest there. And now that the title is done, I'm going to draw some lines here across the wreath, and I'm just trying to make them the same distance apart, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I've also marked the center line there in pencil. And then I'm just going to try my best to do a nice simple cursive print here, or cursive writing in pencil, and I'm writing out some resolutions. I'm not big on making resolutions. I do prefer sort of to do affirmations, but lately I've sort of been having fun with resolutions, and I'm writing things out like I want to knit a sweater. I think that might have been on last year's list, but it has to be moved forward. So now, in order to finish this project and thicken these downstrokes, I am employing a tool that is relatively new to me. This is the Pigma Micron 003 from Sakura. So this is their smallest nib. It is so tiny and so precise. So it's perfect if you've done a really small cursive hand lettering. You can thicken those downstrokes with a lot of precision. And what I like to do is get my head really close to the page and use this nib, and I have a lot of success with that technique. Once you've thickened up all those down strokes, just give the pen just a moment to dry, and then you can erase all those initial pencil lines, and that's it, you're done. This is the Resolutions Wreath. I love putting this up somewhere in my office or studio so that I can remember all the resolutions I made throughout the year. And that's it. Thanks for watching today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment, tell me what you thought, and I hope you're having a wonderful holiday.